Hello, everyone. Welcome to Desi's True Crime Corner. I hope everyone is having a blessed day today. Thank you so much for tuning into my channel. And today we'll be discussing the shooting spree that occurred in the summer of 2022 in Detroit that took the lives of three innocent victims. Now, this case does really hit home for me because I am from Detroit, Michigan, born and raised. And I do remember that when this incident took place, how scary it was for everyone and how much it traumatized everyone in our community, especially the families of the victims that were involved in this. So I'm just here to shed light and tell their stories. On Sunday, August 28th, 2022, near 7 Mile Road in Wyoming Avenue around 4:45 a.m., a gunman approached an innocent man, fatally shooting him multiple times with a 9mm pistol. It was also reported that after the first fatal gunshots, the suspect walked away from the victim and then he walked back up to the innocent victim, firing his weapon, shooting the victim multiple times again before fleeing the scene on foot. Now, authorities weren't contacted regarding this shooting, the first shooting that occurred, but they did discover the lifeless body of this man lying in the doorway of a church on 7 Mile and Wyoming Avenue. The victim was later identified as 28-year-old Shane Lewis Lee, a father to a 9-year-old little boy, and at the time of his death, he was on his way to the church that his lifeless body was found in front of because his grandfather happened to own the church that he was visiting when he was fatally shot and killed. Shane was also a twin. He had a twin sister and other siblings on his father's side of the family as well. So he came from a pretty big family who loved him so much. He was loved by everyone in his family. Everyone around him described him as the life of the party. He was always joking. He was always laughing. He was just always in a really good mood. And everyone could depend on him to get everyone in a good mood and get everyone laughing. He just had really good energy. So, as we all can imagine, his death really took a toll on his family and it really affected them. And they were really, really hurt and traumatized by this incident just to know that their loved one was shot and killed for absolutely no reason. He was an innocent man and he did not deserve that at all. He had a 9-year-old child, and now his child has to grow up without their father because of senseless killings, because of senseless violence. After authorities discovered Shane's body, they began their investigation. And about 30 minutes into investigating the crime scene of his murder, they received a call of shots fired about 3 blocks away from his crime scene on Wyoming and Margaretta Avenue. Authorities then arrived on Wyoming and Margaretta Avenue around 5:23 a.m. And when they arrived, they found the body of a unidentified woman lying on the sidewalk suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. She had been fatally shot and killed. A neighbor or someone who lived in the neighborhood was the first person to discover the lifeless body of this young lady. And of course, after making this discovery, they contacted the police. And also, while authorities were on the scene of the crime, neighbors also told police that they heard multiple gunshots before they witnessed a man with a slender kind of build with dark clothing on fleeing east on Margaretta Avenue. Now, authorities weren't able to identify this woman at first because when she was found, she didn't have any form of identification on her or any way of identifying her. So the woman was listed as a Jane Doe, and authorities released a sketch about a few days after the murders took place, and as well as a photo of the girl's purse and the shorts she had been wearing when she was murdered. The woman was identified days later as 16-year-old Jemiah Lawrence, and she had ran away from home that Saturday night around 10:30 p.m. after getting into a heated argument with her mother, and her mother grounded her and took her phone away. Her mother stated that she had been up driving around all night looking for her daughter that Saturday night before she filed a missing persons report that Sunday morning. Authorities did eventually get in contact with the victim's mother, and when they did get in contact with her, they called her down to identify and show images of the shorts and purse that the victim was last seen wearing before she was murdered. And when they showed this to her mother, she confirmed it was her daughter. She already knew it was her daughter's belongings. And she also confirmed her daughter's identity from her physical description. Jemiah's mother and the rest of her family was completely distraught and devastated after receiving this very terrible news. Her mother described her as a very intelligent and compassionate person. She was also very, very selfless. She would always put her own issues aside or put whatever she had going on aside to help others or to put everyone that she loved before herself. So she was a very selfless person and very, very caring person. Jemiah was entering her senior year of high school and even had plans on attending Michigan State University for college. And she just excelled in school. Her mother described her as being very, very intelligent and taking pride in, her schoolwork and her grades and things of that nature. She remained an honor roll student. Her mother referred to her as heaven sent, and she described how tragic the death of her daughter really was and how difficult it was for her family and her friends and for everyone that loved and adored Jemiah.
Can reach other teens. Well, I pray that my daughter's death is a wake-up call for all of them. It's not okay to get off at your parents and just run out the house. You don't know if you're coming back. I thought I knew. I knew my baby was coming back.
I do completely agree with Lamaya's mother. When she spoke with local news and interviewers, she did, say that she wanted it to be a wake up call for other teens out there to not just run away from home just because you're upset with your parents, because you can run into danger, and she wanted to, raise awareness and speak out for her daughter and just prevent this from happening to other teens. And I completely agree with her. Anybody who's out there, if you're a teenager out there, if you're young out there, just listen to your parents. Like, they're only there to protect you. If you are upset with them, just, go in your room, cool off. Because if you decide that you want to run outside, you don't know what you're going to run into. You don't know what kind of danger you're going to run into. It's some very scary and dangerous people out here. It's very unfortunate that Lamaya lost her life at such a young age. She was only 16 years old. And she has so many goals, so many academic goals. She wanted to go to college. She had so many goals that she would never get to accomplish because her life was taken in such a very tragic and senseless way. Meanwhile, authorities were investigating both crimes, and at this time, Lamaya's identity was still unknown and she was still labeled as a Jane Doe. Also, at this time, authorities were not aware, since they were still investigating both crimes, they were not aware of the fact that both of these crimes were connected. So they didn't know that these crimes had any type of connection at this time. While authorities were investigating both crimes, they heard another round of gunshots around 6:50 a.m. coming from Livernois Avenue. And when authorities rushed to the scene, they found the body of a woman later identified as 43-year-old Larai Briscoe. She was waiting for a bus when the suspect walked up to her, shooting her multiple times before fleeing the scene on foot. Larai Briscoe was a single, hardworking mother of 5 children, and she was described by everybody who knew her as very kind and loving, and she just brought joy to everybody that was around her, and everybody just loved having her around. She was just such a good soul. She worked as a medical receptionist at a allergy clinic, and all of her coworkers absolutely adored her. They described how she always went out her way to make everyone feel special and to make everyone happy. For instance, she will always come in super, super early to open up the clinic and to decorate for everyone's birthday, just to make everybody feel special on their day. That was just the type of person that she was. She just had such a good heart, and she was just always trying to make everybody around her happy. On the morning that she was murdered, Larai was actually waiting to catch the bus so that she could rent a moving van, because she had plans on moving her and as well as her children to a home closer to her job. Just to think about the fact that this woman, Larai, was going about her regular day, not bothering anybody, probably in such a great mood because she was a hard worker and she was able to provide for her children and get this new home. And she was probably just excited to have these new blessings and to move into her new home with her children and just have this in her life. She was probably in such a great mood. And for someone to just take her life unprovoked, she did nothing to nobody. She was an innocent woman, a hard-working, innocent single mother. And the fact that someone just came and took her life in such a senseless way for absolutely no reason, absolutely no reason. It's just so sad to think about. And everything that this woman did was for her children. She was dedicated to providing a good life for all of her children and just being a good mother to her children. She just wanted the best for all of her children. And the simple fact that she was taken away from her children and her children have to endure this pain for the rest of their lives is so, so sad. And it's just so sad to think about just everyone involved in this case, how they are taken away from their families, but especially this young lady and that father and Larai, she had 5 children, you know what I'm saying? Young children too that was depending on her and they were expecting their mother to come home to them and they loved their mother. And I'm pretty sure this loss was a huge loss for everybody that loved her and as well as her children, especially her children because they love their mother so much. It's so sad to think about they will have to grow up without their mother because of the senseless violence here in Detroit and in America in general, and how people can just take someone's life for no reason. Absolutely no reason. Less than half an hour later, around 7:08 a.m., police were called again to a home on Pennington near 7 Mile Road with reports of shots fired. And when police arrived to the home, they discovered that an elderly man and as well as his dog had been shot. The elderly man who was shot was identified as 76-year-old John Pellick, who was also a former military police officer. He was out that morning walking his dog Kingston, who had also been shot and injured in this incident when a random gunman dressed in all black approached him, firing in his direction, shooting him in his leg, causing him to instantly fall to the ground, and also shooting his dog Kingston in his foot. John began to call and cry out for help after being shot, and by the grace of God, a neighbor had heard the gunshots and looked out the window and witnessed everything that was occurring. And they ran to go get their gun or their firearm and ran outside of the home, shooting at the gunman, causing him to run off, which is crazy to me because it's crazy how he can approach all of these people who are unarmed, all these innocent people who don't have any weapons on them. When someone has a weapon and is shooting back at him, he runs off like a coward, but he can shoot innocent, unarmed people. After the suspect ran off, the neighbor then sprung into action to help John and as well as his dog. They began to wrap his wound in a tourniquet and call the police. And if you guys don't know what a tourniquet is, I didn't know what that was either. It's kind of like a little band or like a pressure band that you wrap around someone's wound when they're like losing a lot of blood just to add pressure and to stop the blood. So that's what they wrapped around John's leg, his gunshot wound, and as well, I don't know what they did with his dog. They didn't put that out there, but they did contact the police after this, and after police and ambulance came, they did take his dog and as well as John to get medical attention. And after they received medical attention, they both did make a full recovery. And John is the only person to survive these senseless killings. Now, initially, these cases were thought to be unrelated in 4 separate cases, but after further investigation and tips from the public, authorities discovered that they were in fact related and that they were looking for the same suspect. A huge search then began by authorities to help catch this guy, and DPD officers also contacted other task force to help and assist. So it was the Michigan State Police and the FBI and Homeland Security helping to catch and get this suspect off of the streets because by this time he had shot 4 people. He had shot 4 people, killing 3 and wounding 1 and a dog. And he was still out on the loose, and it was no telling who else he was going to shoot and kill. And he was shooting innocent people, targeting random people. So he was definitely very, very, very dangerous, and they needed help to hunt him and get him off the streets to avoid, anybody else losing their lives. Also, authorities and other local news outlets did warn the citizens of Detroit that there was a man that was armed and very dangerous, targeting random innocent people. They just wanted to inform everybody so that everybody can stay indoors and, just be safe and prevent running into this man, because at this time they knew what area that he was in, because obviously he was on foot and all of the murders or shootings took place in close proximity from each other. So it was like, yes, we all know that he's in this area, but he's on foot, so he could be traveling or anything of that nature. So no one was really sure around that time. So they really just wanted to warn everyone so that they can stay indoors and just try to, avoid being outside and things of that nature, just to be safe, because this guy was very dangerous and just walking up to random innocent people that just, living their regular everyday lives, walking up to them, targeting them for no reason, shooting them and killing them. He had intent to kill. So by now, most of the citizens of Detroit were aware of the shootings that were occurring and that these were random attacks on innocent people. Since the shooter was walking on foot while committing these crimes, there was a plethora of home surveillance footage of him walking and roaming around the neighborhoods of the west side of the city, which was obviously captured by residents who lived in the neighborhood. Photos captured from the surveillance footage showed a African American man in all black, which gave a better physical description of what the shooter looked like. And these images of this man began to spread all over social media and news outlets to again warn the citizens of Detroit so that they can be safe and so that they'll know this is what this guy looks like. Also, remember around this time how much fear this put into everybody in the community, because like I said before, I was born and raised in Detroit. So I remember me myself even hearing about this and seeing it all over social media, seeing it all over the local news, and me contacting, my family members, because I live on the east side of the city, but I do have family members that live in that area, and I can just imagine how everybody else reacted as well, because I remember how I was calling all of my family members that lived on the west side of Detroit and tell them to stay in the house. If you're at work, stay inside of your job. Just try to be safe, because it's an active shooter out on the loose and he's just targeting random innocent people of the community. So I remember how much fear this put into everybody and how everybody was all over social media, just saying like stay in the house because this man is out here just killing random people. After about a 13-hour manhunt of investigating these murders and searching for the shooter, police will receive a very helpful tip from a person claiming to be a close relative of the shooter. And the relative did share very helpful information with them. They told authorities about the shooter and where he resided. Authorities then secured a search warrant before arriving at a home on the 7300 block of Pembroke Avenue, where they arrested 19-year-old Dante Smith and retrieved the 9mm pistol that was used in all of the shootings. 19-year-old Dante Smith was then booked and charged with one count of first-degree murder and one count of assault with intent to murder, one count of animal cruelty, and 5 counts of felony firearms. Now, since 2022, there has not been many updates regarding this case, but this year, January of 2025, Dante, who is now 21, did plead guilty but mentally ill to second-degree murder, attempted murder, and other charges. His defense attorney stated that he is now stable and competent, but at the time of the murders, he was suffering from a paranoid, schizophrenic kind of episode, and he thought that everyone he encountered on the street that night or that morning, he was trying to hurt him or was trying to kill him or had intent to harm him, and he just reacted with these thoughts even though these people were just minding their business. They weren't trying to hurt him. They didn't have any firearms or any type of weapons on them. All of them were unarmed when they were murdered. But he did claim that this was some type of schizophrenic episode, and he thought that his life was in danger with everyone he came across that morning, and that is why he did what he did. And the deal that he agreed to plead guilty but mentally ill to carries a minimum of 30 years in prison, and he will be eligible for parole after 30 years in custody. After going over all of the details of this case, me personally, I do not agree with the sentencing, mainly because the fact that he'll be eligible for parole after 30 years, and I do understand that it's not a guarantee that he will be released, but it is also a possibility that he can get released after 30 years of serving time in prison. That is very upsetting for me, and I know it is very, very upsetting for the family members of the victims involved in this case. If I was a judge, I would sentence him to life with no eligibility for parole, because he took three innocent lives and tried to take another. And if he didn't get caught, or if his relative didn't give law enforcement that tip, who's to say this man wouldn't still have been out here shooting and killing and hurting more people that day? More lives probably would have been took that day. I do understand that he is probably suffering from a mental illness, but if that's the case, you guys need to lock him away in a facility for the mental ill, or a psych ward or something of that nature. I do not believe that he should be out on the streets after 30 years of serving, prison time. I don't believe he should have any eligibility to even be released. I think that he should be put away for the rest of his life because he took innocent lives, and these people will never ever see their families again. Their families will never see them again. He took them away for no reason. So I do believe that his sentencing could have been way harsher. I just want to say rest in peace to all three of the victims who lost their lives to this very, very senseless and violent act. And I do want to send my condolences out to the families of the victims involved in this case. And I do hope that you guys find some kind of healing and some kind of peace one day. I do understand that it'll never get easy. You're always going to think about your loved one, especially since they were taken in such a tragic way. And I'm pretty sure this is always going to hurt you and affect you. But I do hope that you do find some kind of healing and peace. So that's all I have for today's case. Thank you so much for taking the time out your day to tune into my video. Please comment, like, and subscribe. And comment down below your thoughts on this case. I would really like to hear you guys' opinions and thoughts on this case. Um, Thank you so much for tuning in again, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.